Coming up on Arirang News, South Korea's monsoon rain continues. More than a dozen people have died in floods and landslides so far, and almost a dozen more are still missing. The government's considering declaring a disaster. The government finalizes South Korea's minimum wage for next year. It comes out to around $7.30, a record low increase of 1.5%. And South Korea's ruling party proposes new taxes specifically for foreigners who own multiple homes that they don't live in. This is in addition to new measures already approved to discourage speculation and bring down home prices. It's 5 o'clock p.m. here in Seoul. Thank you for tuning in to Arirang News. I'm Devin Whiting. South Korea has had a record-breaking monsoon this year, leading to deadly floods and landslides. The rain has eased up in Seoul a bit now, and there's even some sunshine. Our Kim Sung-min is on the banks of the Han River in Seoul at the Jamsu Bridge, a low-lying bridge often used to gauge the level of rain in the capital. Sung-min, how's it looking out there?
Devin, the rain has subsided now, but the Jamsu Bridge right behind me is still submerged. The Han River is still about 7 meters higher than usual because the Paredang Dam has been releasing an enormous amount of backed up water. The water has not gone down below 6.2 meters, which is the level at which the bridge could reopen. It's been closed for 4 days now and is expected to remain closed because another dam, the Soyang Dam, has started releasing water as of 3 p.m. It's the first time that the dam's opened up in 3 years. If the water on the Han River does rise, then some of the major roads that have reopened, like the Olympic and Dongbu expressways, could have to close again. So be sure to check for traffic updates.
Well, Sung-min, it is still raining a bit right now with the occasional deluge. How much more rain can we expect today?
Quite a lot of rain in the capital region, 50 to 100 millimeters per hour. Some regions like the northern part of Gyeonggi-do province and Gangwon-do province are currently getting heavy showers of around 20 to 40 millimeters per hour, accompanied by thunder and lightning. These areas are under heavy rain alerts, and several parts of the country, including the Gangwon-do and Chungcheong-do provinces, are under landslide warnings. So people should refrain from going outside and should take extra caution in mountainous areas. I'll be back with more updates later. Back to you, Devin.
All right, Kim Sung-min, thank you for that, and be safe out there. And the South Korean government is looking at designating areas affected by the floods as special disaster regions, which would free up relief funds from the state. The provinces in question are Gyeonggi-do, Chungcheongbuk-do, and Chungcheongnam-do. Here's Prime Minister Chung Se-kyun.
I'm calling on related ministries to come up with restoration countermeasures with the consideration of the climatic environment as soon as this downpour comes to an end.
Floods and landslides this week have so far left at least 15 dead and 11 others missing as of Wednesday morning. The Central Disaster and Safety Countermeasure Headquarters says more than 1,000 people have been forced to leave their homes over the past 5 days. South Korea's Unification Ministry has urged North Korea to give prior notice before it releases water from its dams because of the risk of flooding downstream in the south. The ministry said the water level on the Imjin River, which runs along the western part of the inter-Korean border, surged twice Tuesday night. On Monday, the north opened a dam just across the border, releasing a massive amount of water. Since July, Pyongyang has released water from the same dam 3 times without notice. The two Koreas had agreed back in 2009 to let each other know when they're opening their floodgates following an accident that killed 6 South Koreans. In the north, meanwhile, the Taedong River, which flows through Pyongyang, is reportedly at risk of flooding as well. The South Korean government has finalized next year's minimum hourly wage. The Labor Ministry said Wednesday that it'll be 8,721, which is about $7.30. This is the amount approved by the Minimum Wage Commission last month. It represents an increase of just 1.5% from this year and the smallest increase to date. One of the government's top priorities right now is to cool down Korea's overheated real estate market. As part of that, the ruling Democratic Party has proposed higher taxes for foreigners who own multiple homes in Korea that they don't live in. Kim Da-mi reports.
Heftier taxes on foreigners who own multiple homes that they don't live in. That's what South Korea's ruling Democratic Party has proposed to stop them from speculating in the local market. On Wednesday, the party suggested an additional tax of 20% on homes owned by foreigners who don't live in them for 6 months. Other options being considered are heftier capital gains taxes and property taxes. Currently, some real estate regulations do not apply to foreign homeowners. In other countries, New Zealand bans non-residents from buying real estate, and Singapore has a surcharge for foreigners. South Korea's tax authorities earlier on Monday launched investigations of 42 foreigners who own multiple homes. The NTS plans to collect taxes they have evaded and send data on their tax evasion to the tax authorities in their home countries. According to the National Tax Service, 1,036 foreigners bought 2 or more homes between 2017 and this May. And almost 1/3 of the 23,000 homes owned by foreigners in the country were not occupied by the owner. Most of those homes were located in the Seoul metropolitan area. As home prices reach levels unattainable for many people, the government has been cracking down on the speculative buying of multiple homes by foreigners and locals alike. On Tuesday, the National Assembly hiked taxes on anyone owning multiple homes, especially in speculative areas. 김다미, Arirang News.
Time now for an in-depth look at the market news this afternoon, and for that I'm joined on the line by Dr. Yang Jun-seok, professor of economics at the Catholic University of Korea. Professor Yang, thank you as always for making time.
Happy to be here.
Well, stocks on Wall Street advanced again overnight, the Nasdaq for another record high. It seems that was in part on hope that lawmakers will finally reach a deal on the new stimulus bill. What's the story in the global markets?
Okay, well, the U.S. stock market is doing unusually well, and there seems to be somewhat of a separation between the real economy and the stock market. The separation seems to be there for a while. If you look at the actual state of the United States economy, if you look at their second quarter earnings report, they're not doing very well, though they beat the expectations. The total earnings are down substantially from second quarter last year. And the coronavirus, there is increasing hopes that the vaccine will come along. But still, for United States, for the ninth day, the deaths are averaging higher than 1,000 a day. So if you look at the entire U.S. economy, it's a bit of a question why the stock markets are doing so well. But if you look at some details, there are, I think, some pieces of news that investors are taking optimistic notes from. For example, the Fed has promised to continue low interest rates and keep buying corporate bonds. And while Congress has not agreed on a stimulus package, some details are coming out. And among the details seems to be that they agreed on having an additional $1,200 payout to most households. Unlike Korean emergency relief payments, some of the richest households will be shut out of this $1,200 payments. But the $1,200 payments will have a lot of effect on demand, and they seem to be coming around to the view that the $600 additional payment for unemployment insurance is desirable. A lot of Republicans were against that, but they seem to be coming around the view as well. And then the tech side has genuinely good results. Because of the lockdown, because people are afraid to go out, because people are working from home, tech companies are doing very well, and that's showing up in tech stocks. The S&P Tech Index has already went over the previous all-time high. So that kind of optimism seems to be driving not only the tech stocks, but the other stocks as well.
Well, here in Korea, the Kospi rose above 2,300 points today for the first time this year. A lot of individual investors buying in. What was driving that trade today?
Okay, well, for today, there hasn't been a whole lot of really good news in the last couple of days for Korea as well. There hasn't been that bad news, but there has been that much good news as well. So the results are being attributed to the United States stock markets doing very well, and Korean Kospi getting very close to and going over 2,300 today. But If you look at other Asian markets, while China and Hong Kong is up, the Nikkei of Japan is down, and the results are fairly mixed, but partially because of the U.S. stock market, partially because the Korean economy, while it's doing badly, it's getting more optimistic that Korea can beat the coronavirus. It seems to be driving the market higher as well. In the Kospi market, the individuals bought stock today went up 1.4%, but in Kosdaq market, Kosdaq also went up by 1.43%, but individuals sold in the Kosdaq case.
Well, as many have been saying it would, the price of gold has risen above $2,000 an ounce. Some are saying it could even go to $3,000. What do you say about gold, Professor?
Okay, well, gold, at least in the short term, has the potential to go higher. Now, gold is now at, if you look at the nominal prices, it is at the highest level that it's ever been. The previous high was in August 2011. The closing high was $1,891. Intraday was $1,923, but current prices have beat that. But if you take the inflation-adjusted price, then it hasn't hit the historical high yet. The inflation-adjusted price at the intraday peak was $2,640, so it hasn't hit that much high yet. The reason that people are moving into gold is, I think, because, well, in most cases where there's economic instability, global financial market instability, people flee to safe assets. That includes government bonds and gold. So the people are flowing down to gold. This is somewhat predictable. As to how far it would go, investment banks are targeting prices between $2,000 and $2,100 by autumn, but the current numbers show that the gold price rise seems to be moving even faster than what the investment banks predicted. Goldman Sachs targeted gold price of $2,300 per ounce by July next year. And Bank of America, their price target is $3,000 by the end of 2021, end of next year. While I think the gold prices still have room to go higher in the short run, I'm not sure if I would trust these longer-term targets by the investment banks because, well, because of the coronavirus, the global economic future is so unpredictable. If there is a cure for coronavirus by the end of the year, if there is a vaccine, or even if the coronavirus comes under control, I think you'll see gold prices dropping like a rock. But if the coronavirus problem continues, then we'll see gold prices going even higher.
Well, it'll be interesting to watch, Professor. Thanks so much for sharing your insights today. We always appreciate it.
Thank you.
Now, the Moon administration's so-called Korean New Deal agenda lays out some ambitious plans for the environment, but it's been pointed out that it does not include a deadline for achieving net zero carbon. Now, it looks like that could be on the agenda, with the government planning to hold public hearings on the matter starting next month. Choi Jung-yoon reports.
In mid-July, the South Korean government announced a Green New Deal, part of its recovery package to counter the impact of COVID-19. But the $61 billion plan has received criticism over the lack of concrete and specific goals to achieve net zero greenhouse gas emissions in Korea. Net zero refers to achieving an overall balance between greenhouse gases emitted and removed from the atmosphere, typically achieved through cutting emissions and transitioning to renewable energy. To raise awareness and understanding of climate change, New Zealand and the Pacific Island countries have shared experience and urged South Korea to actively set policies to reach net zero carbon in the near future. At a meeting held by the Global Green Growth Institute, experts said putting the target in the policy is vital. New Zealand's parliament passed a zero-carbon law last year, which will aim to make the country carbon neutral by 2050.
What that law does is it sets in place some really important structures to make sure that climate change can be viewed over the long term, and that any successive governments are, of course, bound by the law.
South Korea's ambassador for climate change said the Korean New Deal unveiled last July is not a final policy but an evolving one.
as the 2050 net zero carbon plan requires fundamental change of a whole society. Getting the public on board is necessary. The South Korean government will have 2 to 3 public hearings through September to October.
Calling the Moon administration to have a more committed attitude, Ban Ki-moon, the former UN Secretary General and the current chairman of the GGGI, said tackling climate change requires global-level cooperation.
Climate change is a defining issue for humanity and planet. It is a global issue. It is a transboundary issue. Thus, it requires whole of our cooperation and collective cooperation.
South Korea aims to make concrete decisions by the end of the year. Once the plan is legislated, it will set the grounds for annual carbon budgets, turning climate change into day-to-day politics. 최정윤, 아리랑 뉴스.
And that brings us to the end of this newscast. Thank you for watching. More live news coming your way at 7 p.m. Korea time.